Hello there everyone and welcome back. This is it. This is the final episode of my ranked endeavor with the Asuryani, at least for the time being at least. And while for some weird reason my ranking has been climbing incredibly slowly, or at least it feels like it, we are still incredibly close to the legendary rank, and I will be honest, I'm really damn tempted to try and sneak in maybe another episode, maybe believing I can get to legend rank that way, but hey, I've gone on long enough, and of course, with the 2 weeks of delays that I had before with family visiting and coming on by, that kind of made this a little... What am I trying to say? It dragged out a lot longer than I really intended, so I think it's best to put this to bed finally. And in all honesty, I'm missing all the other factions. I miss my Blood Axes, I definitely miss my Imperial Navy fleet, and there's a bunch of other factions to have fun with. But either way, we're facing off against Adeptus Mechanicus in what seems like forever, and we're going to be facing off against what I believe is a lower admiral level player, since the frigates are not going to be salt running. They're going to be very aggressive, and by aggressive I mean they're going to be with the rest of the fleet and trying to contribute with the firepower. So, in all honesty, I don't know what to expect here, but the limit, or was it not limited, but the lack of skills and upgrades they have access to, let alone the fact they don't have Disruption Overcharge, should in theory make this a quite simple match for me, at least in comparison to other matchups that I've had, since my opponent is going to also be utilizing a light cruiser in this fleet, so it's going to be 2 cruisers, a battleship, I forget what kind of cruisers in all honesty, I think one of them at least is a Gothic, and all the ships you see in front are basically all the frigates. Don't ask me how they were able to afford so many frigates, because when I mention it, a battleship, 2 cruisers, and a light cruiser, it's kind of similar to how my fleet is, although I was only able to fit 3 falchions I think with that fleet, and not like 5 or 6 that we're seeing here currently. And I'm almost certain their ships were also swords, I think. I could be entirely wrong there. The health points, the health pool on these frigates will kind of give away what they are once we get into the secret, but everything is as you expected. The only thing I'm not prepared for is the light cruisers actually hidden over on the left. And the reason I know that, especially ahead of time, is since I'm going to see the fighters being launched over and harassing my cruisers, I think is what's going to happen there on the left point. And so we're going to have ourselves a nice little side fight. Yeah, there it is right there, in fact. Just saw quick blips of the fighters that kind of tip off to something behind the gas cloud. I just didn't know what it was, to be honest. And I think maybe I was expecting it to be a cruiser and maybe have micro warp jump. Yeah, it is a bunch of 400 health frigates at least, so it's not like the dirt cheap ones. So, it does confuse me a little bit. Maybe it's been so long since I played Adeptus Mechanicus, I forgot how much the points cost lining up to be, or maybe the points on the ships were actually buffed a bit, or made more cheaper. I honestly don't know. I'm going to have to go back to other factions for that reason alone, but still. I'm actually taking a surprising amount of damage on this Phoenix right off the bat. That's like almost 200 points right off the offset of this battle. And a lot of that is due to the fact that these frigates have the extended sensor range. And this is also going to be important, because the light cruiser has that upgrade, and keep in mind, with my light cruiser about to engage it, it is going to mark my ship if I ever get to within 4,000 range, so keep that in mind as this battle plays out. And so much so, I want to kill off these frigates, so that's what the Maelstrom is for, and it does decent. It's just tricky to focus the fire down just due to the finicky nature of the pulsars. And still, the damage is still going down on this Phoenix. It did lose an engine, but thankfully that's one of the components that, Aeldari in general, kind of are least concerned with, unless they're firing on the cruisers there. And this is a light cruiser right there grabbing the points, so we're going to have our brawl momentarily. And all this time, I've been trying to kill these things off. It seems really simple. I definitely kind of was not expecting this to be as much effort as I thought, since I was setting myself up for a much more easier type of battle with the frigates being immediately revealed, but they are doing noteworthy damage so far, and who knows how many of those critical hits contributed to it. So torpedo hits there. Keep in mind, one of the charges the bombers have been dealt with the light cruiser, I do believe, since that was launched to engage my 2 cruisers earlier. And the light cruisers only have 2 charges of bombers, so you think I should be perfectly fine with my light cruiser flying away, but no. Apparently it did not kill the bombers. They managed to return safely and I'm taking a lot of damage as a result, oddly enough. And the frigates are still alive. Sure, they have 200 shields. It makes it a little more complicated than I would expect, but I do have the 3 points and I have a substantial point lead at least going for me. That's the one thing I have going for me, but so far, yeah, the focus is still on the Phoenix. It's at half health now. Thankfully, the generator was not destroyed yet. I imagine how screwed over I could potentially be with that. To have every shot potentially be able to do full damage in, but either way, we got the Rad Storm trying to do damage here, trying to cripple him off, and of course dodging Novacans, but I think this cruiser is going to take a hit. Its Wraithbone shift is not going to be up in time. So 1 hit, but not as devastating as it could have been with the 2. And just now, after all this time, and the Phoenix getting almost crippled as a result of this, we're now fighting the main fleet. It may be 3 cruisers, but it's still, well, 2 cruisers and a battleship, but it's still 2 full health cruisers and a battleship. One of which just destroyed my bomber squadrons with relative ease at that. But this is a prime opportunity for a torpedo salvo to kind of correct this and even out the odds really quickly. Since I don't even think I got that many points for destroying all those frigates if I were to be serious. So these torpedoes are incredibly important for that alone. And with the second salvo, this is dead. No questions asked. It seemed really tenuous, but it goes to show those torpedoes, if I can connect with them, can make all the difference in a hurry. And that will make my life a lot more simpler here, although the Phoenix is still the focus of these attacks, probably because it's the closest ship currently, so that might have a lot to do with it right now. And we have the raw shield power to get through on this Arc Mechanicus as well, which thankfully is also alleviated to a vague extent thanks to the Spear Crystal lenses, as much as I'm loath to try and abuse that glitched mechanic. So I claim, or so I believe it's kind of glitched anyway. But more torpedoes. The battleship's due to be destroyed relatively soon, but this poor light cruiser, I thought it could take on this light cruiser one-on-one, but because of the extended sensors kind of giving it that 45-second mark, the Phoenix just now dying as a result here. And the bombers refusing to get shot down by even a single light cruiser. It is actually losing that battle as a result, dang it. And I am going to force it to retreat and group up with the rest of my fleet right now. Especially with the light cruiser losing its engines, I can't easily afford it. Now, I just need to finish this thing off, and I don't quite have the torpedo charges or the close proximity to really kill it off just yet. So we're going to have to kill it the old-fashioned way, I'm afraid to say. Just shoot it until it dies. I'm sure the Imperial Navy would approve. Don't know about the Adeptus Mechanicus though. And sadly I'm fumbling those pulsars even as well, but with the fire results I only need this one final salvo and it will burn down. The fire damage is enough to kill this ship, it's just a matter of how much more damage it can do before it burns down. And that was inconvenient timing on the Rad Storm as well, trying to boost to relative safety. So at the end of the day, it probably did what it needed to, because this is going to be close, folks. 2 of my ships are nearly below 200 health. This is not going to survive. Oh, thankfully, it was a Omni sign. I was wondering if it was going to make it out. I kind of forgot how this battle played out, I suppose. It looked like it was going to die, though. But thankfully, this thing's going to break morale in a moment. The deck's not quite destroyed, but with the low health, its attrition is starting to get the best of me now, but this is the final real ship to have to worry about. The light cruiser, on its own, should not be a threat. You would think, anyway. Although that was kind of the job of the light cruiser, wasn't it? To try and take that thing single-handedly. And keep in mind, this second cruiser on the bottom has no weapons to it at all. It is effectively out of the fight now. The only thing it can do is be an effective ramming, a battering ram pretty much. which I am considering doing. The only thing I'm worried about is the morale damage, so I'm actually waiting until the encouraging speech comes back up first, which will be another 5 or so-ish seconds here. And then I'm going to turn it to finish it off, simply put. Probably not the endorsed way of the Aeldari to get victory, but it works in this current circumstance at least. And thankfully, the one cruiser that's still alive has one charge of torpedoes left over, thankfully. And I've been holding on to it for such an occasion. Because good God, does it help at killing things rapidly, even with the fighters there to kind of support to a limited extent. But good God, I was telling you how my opponent did not silent run with the frigates. It was a lower level fleet as well, so they didn't have access to all the skills, and I almost just barely lost. Good God. I don't know what to make of that. I almost feel like I should be embarrassed. This is not the top quality player you should be expecting, right? Alright, match number 2 against Chaos, and I don't think I recognize this player either. I'm almost certain it's a lower level player as well, but they are going to be utilizing a bit of a mixed up type of fleet, I think, as well. There's going to be 2 Grand Cruisers, I think a couple of Carnages, whatever one has the Prowl Lances, because I don't want to say they're the Hades, since the number of ships we are about to encounter. I think it's like 3 Cruisers, 2 Grand Cruisers, and then 3 frigates maybe, so I don't want to believe they're battle cruisers, but one of them at least has a Prowl Lance. That much I think I'm certain. I could be entirely wrong in this venture. It's been known to happen, but either way, this potentially has a lot of promise for me. But I said it seems like that in the first match as well, didn't it? And my opponent did not even have Disruption Overcharge to really punish me for those type of drawn out type of engagements anyway. Where if they did have Disruption Overcharge, I would kind of be forced to back off or somehow make my other ships soak the damage until the hull fields got back up, if I realistically want to win that game of attrition. So, I could be, well, put my money where my mouth is, I suppose. We're going to get this match started in a few moments and we'll see if that's the case or not. But there's not really much else to say. I got 3 objectives that potentially I can easily grab, and then we wait from there. This is a nice simplistic layout. I just gotta make sure all my fleets are converged back together, especially in case my opponent wants to recklessly charge through the middle of the map. With the additional speed that Chaos potentially has, they could run me down in the middle of the map. They just won't have the best chasing potential because most of their combustion gauge will be burnt. That would be the exception there. Either way, there's the fleet there. There's a couple of frigates around. I'm almost certain of it. I just can't for the life of me remember where they would be. Not that it probably matters too much, but
you have seized a strategic area.
It may not be as big of a factor just due to the lack of cover and gas clouds I have, at least in the middle of the map. I would have to do a full retreat if I really want to reconceal my ships in any form to kind of protect them. So we might be fighting out in the open quite a bit, especially if my opponent wants to try and make a play for any of these objectives, since they don't quite have the convenience to just sit around 3 points and turtle all day, even if their fleet was kind of designed for that. I'm just trying to remember for the life of me which kind of Grand Cruisers they were. That I don't quite recall either. I think there was a Stig though, at least, so maybe I'm wrong. At least one of them is a battle cruiser. Nonetheless, my opponent is taking a slow and steady route. So, that just means I have the nice comfort of grabbing these 3 points and just waiting for them. Or at least looking for an opportunity to try and do some free damage, when the entirety of their fleet's nowhere nearby to kind of punish that. And with the fighters kind of revealing them, that helps a little bit there. Okay, so at least one of the ships is a Stig or at least a Grand Cruiser with carrier bays, which judging by those reveals is not the case. So now, it's just a matter of the window to engage, because I am not really comfortable engaging out in the open like this, as would be made apparent as before, but I don't have much need to also engage. I kind of said that enough already. I want to be within reach of backing up and just reconcealing myself. I just don't know where these frigates are hiding. I didn't spy anything with the fighters, so I should be okay, especially with the single Grand Cruiser just shooting at me at the moment. 2 of the Grand Cruisers I think are shooting now, but since it's not really the broadside weaponry, I think the damage is minimal. Although, that turnaround and disengage doesn't really do me much favors since I didn't even do any hull damage. So this is maybe me playing a little bit overcautious, let alone a bit indecisive there with me just side strafing and maybe looking for another opportunity to try and attack. And I'm contemplating having this light cruiser backdoor and steal points or at least contribute with the damage on the Grand Cruiser. But we're going to see something really weird in a moment here that I don't know if it was just dumb luck or I gave away my position, but a random frigate's going to be pursuing my light cruiser, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. Oh, that might explain it. I just literally flew right into it. I'm looking at the mini map now. Not so much the light cruiser, but I just conveniently fly into it, so maybe that explains it. By the time I actually notice the light cruiser, I just see it turning towards me and flying towards my ship, which is what freaked me out there for a moment. Because I was wondering how the hell I knew my light cruiser was there. Now I know my answer. It's a nice easy removal of the dang cruiser, or the light frigate at least. But I think this is another case of the extended sentinel range kind of revealing the light cruiser. Since I killed that thing so fast, I believe that it never got a chance for a scanner pulse to kick in. And I'm trying to send out the fighter numbers of the Stig as well as an added bonus, since I have the point defense to try and help with that, but right now, we have the entire fleet here. My opponent is going in aggressively, so I'm just going to steal the point and try and do what damage I can here. So far, at least with their prow facing me, it does help minimize the damage quite a bit, but good god. This thing is a Grand Cruiser and we destroyed the deck immediately. As well as a weapon apparently too, and a temporary damage on the engines. It's kind of hard to tell, but I was completely oblivious to that until it started turning towards me, because you can't quite see the damage result on the engines from this angle. Good god though, that was a Grand Cruiser and I got like 4 critical hits, 2 of which were permanent. That, for the life of me, I was not expecting on my good fortune there. And I don't need to tell you how screwed this Grand Cruiser is as a result. The Maelstrom wasn't really planned to abuse the damaged engine. I just kind of wanted to force it to boost on out rapidly. Kind of isolate a little bit more from this cruiser that's trying to shield for it. And I just targeted. I wanted to check see if that was an Akron or Hades or what kind of cruiser was. I missed my chance alas, but good god. The Maelstrom is doing work. And this cruiser, whichever ship it is getting pummeled to death. The critical hits are insane right now. And it's a lot of the reason why the battleships are so damn good at what they do, at least soaking the damage. It's just easier said than done a lot of the times with their lack of mobility. But safe to say that second cruiser is pretty much screwed and vulnerable to a finishing blow. And I'm just checking to see what happened to that Grand Cruiser, if it died or not. And safe to say it did die. It's been erased, and now we're moving on to the next victim. So far, this has been the opposite of what my last match had been, interestingly enough. Although my opponent is not having the frigates join in, like my Adeptus Mechanicus adversary did, but still. You figure there would be a little more damage, if at least to compare the two. And right now, this Carnage, this Hades, whatever the heck it is about to die. So far, everything's going clean and going simple here. This is going to be a simple match. It's what it's looking to be so far. Although I'm thankful my opponent isn't trying to ram me with such a close range too. They are boosted in there. These bombers have the 600 speed to do notable damage, but Thankfully, this is why I like having at least a single carrier ship of some kind, since any amount of bombers they launch at me, especially without support, will get destroyed. It is inevitable, it's just a matter of how long it'll take. Then otherwise, I'm just going to try and kill this frigate over on the top, grab the 5th point, and we'll be smooth sailing from here on out. I just gotta make sure I don't do anything stupid. Well, like getting myself rammed carelessly by this dang Grand Cruiser. Sure, it may not have the A3 armor prow, but it's still gonna hurt. And the stasis bomb's gonna help with that a little bit. Now, I'm just watching on the top right. The frigate is finally gone, and I'll send the light cruiser over to grab the final objective in a moment. Hell, speak of the devil, I'm gonna do that right now. So this is without doubt going to be a solid victory. The one crippled cruiser is now mutinied, so I don't have to worry about that unless I have no better opportunities, but hey, I'm going to try and finish it off. It was a bit random with some of those pulsar shots, but I get the killing blow. We're 400 points away now from victory, so basically destroying one of these should seal the deal for me. Now, the main reason why I'm showcasing this match, well, this, in truth, is the match that's going to put me into the legendary ranking, which is kind of odd considering the 3 or so weeks I've been playing so far, and my ranking coming to an incredibly slow crawl, if not even moving at all for some weird reason. So I was not for the life of me expecting this would give me my ranking that I was trying to strive for, despite how quickly it was going ahead of time in the first few days. And let's see, I don't think destroying this cruiser is going to be enough to get the victory. No, I'm just 100 points short, so we're still going to have to break this ship. Still force morale, and apparently the engine is gone on that too. It's just another case of being really difficult to see. So my opponent wants me to send them off the only way I know how. And sadly, well, I do have torpedoes to help finish off, but I think having 4 objectives is going to end this before I get around to the killing blow regardless. So this is victory here. Not the way I would have envisioned, let alone like to have gotten my legendary ranking, but it happened nonetheless, oddly enough. Which makes me wonder why that is, oddly enough, since, like I said, it was a slow damn crawl getting to this point. And yet here we are. There it is now. I got my legendary ranking finally. It was very unglamorous, but we got it nonetheless. Finally. Alright, third match of the video, and we're facing off against Corsairs yet again, and Maximus. And this is going to be interesting since my opponent is going to try and evade me to at least a limited extent. And they're going to use the assisted targeting runes, whatever the lock-on stance is called, that allows them to use their 270 degree arc. And as I was saying before, the Corsairs should have superior firepower to me, especially since they're going to be utilizing the shadows. Not the shadows, but the Kernoses, which are the cruisers that are all star cannons and have the fighter bays attached to them, as well as 4 Solarises to kind of complement this. Which is going to be an odd thing, since there's only 2 charges of the fighters and bombers. On top of that, they're only single fighter squadrons, as opposed to the 2 squadrons we see with my Phoenix, and pretty much the majority of all the other type of cruisers in Armada 2. So this is going to be this is going to be odd, since Maximus before, I'm pretty certain Maximus was my last Corsair opponent, did have like 5 Kernoses or shadows mixed together, and did not choose to have the Solarises join in. So I'm wondering why the change to the fleet to, if I were to be perfectly honest. And not much else really to say. I'm just going to try and secure 3 points and wait for my opponent to either reveal themselves or make a mistake. There isn't a whole lot else I can do in all seriousness outside of let myself be caught unprepared by their onslaught of star cannons, which I am not going to do. I'm not going to let the hull field die down. I'm going to be constantly moving around, and with fighters and beacons, I at least will have one safe direction I can go to. That's really all there is to it. It's been working surprisingly well in the handful of Tyranid games I had to play, although I still am a little bit bitter I have not played against the true, Pyroacid fleet with the Krakens and all that. I would have liked to try my luck with that. Hell, I've been robbed of even the 6th Strike Cruiser fleet as well, so... even though this series is done, we still have not got to play up against all the fleet compositions we could go up against. So, I'm gonna be left wondering what will work and what won't in those type of matchups. Like, as I hinted at already, the Augur Disruptor could have been useful there, especially against fleets that don't have frigates, but that's gonna require more playtesting, since I don't think it's nearly as helpful for most of the other fleets, since any type of, all-head full or boost you make is more likely going to reveal you unless you're Chaos, Tau, or going with all light cruisers, which does not sound like a good strategy given your limited charges and the slow capture speed. But this is something I'm going to be watching intently. Single squadrons versus the 2 squadrons of my fighters here. And alas, they even get to engage at the same time, and a lot of the reasons why this confuses me is since they're divided into 2 squadrons, my fighters are going to focus on one until it's completely eradicated. And since these fighters have multiple hit points, they're basically is going to be pretty random on how well they're going to destroy my fighters. And like I said, mine is more focused, so in theory, I should win this fight just because of that. Since I know without a fact half their firepower is gone, where potentially most of my fighters could still be intact right now in that fight. And despite the random nature of their evasion, it is an even battle there. Although, I'm not going to try and chance it because it's hard to see with these icons above my ships. And with the 3rd Squadron, that is going to force me to boost my ships in there and try and help kill them off. For hell, I may even recall the fighters with that said too. They're equal strength, but if it wasn't for the 3rd Squadron, I would have survived that, or at least won that, and had my fighters still intact. And I think my fighters even got recalled safely too as an added bonus, so that is nice and convenient. And ideally, the best case situation for me. Killing off 3 of their squadrons, of the Solarises no less, keep in mind they only have 2 charges of those, and I lost nothing in return, besides maybe being revealed. But I had a vague sense of where some of the cruisers are, or at least the Solarises, so I'm going to try and grab this 4th point. And see if my opponent again is going to reveal themselves or make the first move. And in this case, their cruisers are going to steal a point behind me. And the one thing you got to keep in mind, especially with cruisers and the Void Stalker, is that once they're revealed, they are going to stay visible until they can get to an asteroid belt or gas cloud, so this is kind of the mistake, the move I was kind of waiting for. I'm just sadly on the other side of the map to really capitalize on it. But at the very least, there's no gas cloud near them, and I am, at least to a limited extent, flying towards the asteroid belt. There is always the possibility of something, the rest of their fleet being in between us and the cruisers. So I am trying to be a little bit cautious still. And sadly, try as I might to have this light cruiser evade detection, the fighters are just conveniently flying in the perfect direction. I don't even think they're going after the cruiser, which makes this even more mind-boggling for me. I moved the cruisers downward to try and help the light cruiser avoid getting spotted. But thankfully it's not being punished. There's no Solarises shooting at it just yet. And we get a really early critical hit. A lot of that due to luck. Most of it, of course, due to the fragile trait that the Corsairs have. But it's still a tall order, since, as you can see on the 2nd and 3rd cruiser, we hardly did any damage. I rely almost exclusively on those hollow fields being down somehow. But with their boost, I can at least get a little more additional damage in on the flagship. And conveniently, it is also the flagship, so the morale damage is going to be pretty convenient here if I can kill it off. And I think the Phoenix alone can do it, but I think the cruiser is going to try and seal that deal too. It's in the perfect heading for it. But good god, this is kind of what I was talking about right there. I lost the cruiser before I even could kill one of theirs. I was not anticipating that, since my opponent, well, let's see. Yeah, they still have lock-on stance, so I was not paying attention though if I lost the generator, if that was a lot of the reason for why I lost that cruiser as quickly as I did. And with the generator gone in the second cruiser, if I don't get directly behind them, that ship's probably going to suffer the same fate really quickly. Never mind the third cruiser, which is also really close to death right now. I'm relying almost solely on my light cruiser to try and deal with these Solarises right now up top, which thankfully is doing its job incredibly well with just a ramming attempt alone. So, the mutiny on the cruiser, the deck's gone, so that means that's out of the fight. And suddenly this is turning around for me. I did not feel comfortable about this predicament just because of my cruisers. My main brunt of damage is kind of crippled, with the Phoenix rapidly joining suit with all these fire assaults. But with the ramming attempts that I'm able to get, thankfully, and the light cruiser still has decent enough health, just probably not enough to kill 2 light cruisers on its own now. So I gotta make this count somehow. And the torpedoes are probably a good start. I just am gonna miss with them, sadly. They were not meant to be there. But thankfully this cruiser still gets the final laugh. Thankfully. It almost ran both the light cruisers, which would have been amazing, since you momentarily lose control of the ship when it's being destroyed unless you select it again, which is what happened there. I panicked to try and get that final ram attempt in, and it may have just saved my ass as a result. If it's gonna die, why not take something with it, huh? That was a damn tense match, it goes without saying, despite how favorable that could have been for me with the Rams. But what confuses me more, after talking about how slow my progression has been, my ranking in Legendary just skyrocketed rapidly for some reason. I don't know what to make of this MMR, or the matchmaking in general. It was going slow before, and then a lower level fleet, and then this last match just boosted up tremendously. And as a result, I am basically, at least at the end of this recording, I am the #1 Asuryani player, which I'm pretty certain is no longer the case. I think I checked it there and then I just got dropped down to Decay or other players playing their matches, but still. I am just wishful, well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just sorry that I had to delay, or at least prolong this another 2 weeks just because of family stalling things out. But it was definitely a fun time. I definitely really enjoyed the Asuryani, but I think it's time to put an end to this for now, and just get into the other fleets. Although, I am going to try and do more focus with the other factions as well, but I am, if possible, going to wait until the next season is set, whenever the hell that might be. And I may even just cut it down to 3, maybe 4 weeks. Shorten it a little bit, hopefully without the family visiting, to kind of prolong that like what we had here. So thank you everyone for at least watching this series. Hopefully you enjoyed it, even if Aeldari may not be your thing. And we're going to try it with some other factions down the road soon.